In this presentation, we're going to share with you some of the basics and fundamentals of a successful fundraising auction event.
Always use bid numbers, big, bold block numbers. And kind of a pet peeve for me is having three numbers. So starting at like 100, 101, 02, and so on and so forth. For some reason, three numbers work starting at 100 there. These are going to act like credit cards at your event for each bidder. So every time they come up to purchase something, either a revenue enhancing activity like a raffle, a silent auction item, they're going to be writing down or giving their bidder number. Don't make them have to pull out cash and checks and credit cards until the end at checkout. Everything will be identified under them using their bidder number. Make sure that every bidder, including husbands and wives or couples, have their own bidder numbers. And when I say their own bidder numbers, when a husband and wife, for example, check in, make sure that the wife and the husband are each given a bidder number so that if the husband's off talking to some friends during the cocktail hour and the wife wants to bid on something at the silent auction, she doesn't have to go track him down. She can use her bidder number. They're tied to the same account, and that way you won't lose revenue. The timeline will make or break you. The timeline's the backbone of your event and is one of the most important aspects of having a successful fundraiser. Always remember to do your fundraising first and save your party for last. Good sound system, and really what I should say here is make sure and have a great sound system. This is one of my biggest pet peeves as an auctioneer. If your donors can't hear pertinent announcements, the live auction, and fund a need, your event's just not going to be able to raise the maximum amount of revenue. If the silent auction area is separate from the live auction area, like we see at many events, make sure you have a great sound system there as well. I cannot stress this enough. If people cannot hear your board members and your emotional appeals and your auctioneer, they're going to tune out and you're going to just ultimately lose money, and you're not going to spread your cause like you want to at your fundraising event. All of these items will be elaborated when you hire us as your consultant and auctioneer. These are things that we work with you one-on-one and customize to your particular event because we know every event has different unique aspects. I want to talk a little bit about scheduled do's and don'ts, starting with not having too long of a silent auction. There's simply no need to allot more than an hour and a half for your silent auction. It won't result in enough, if at all, of a difference in revenue. And quite frankly, if you're having a big fundraising auction event, this should not be the number one revenue generator. Next, add revenue enhancers. Revenue enhancers, if you don't know, are things like raffles, heads or tails, or a premium dessert auction, to name just a few. If you hire us as a consultant, you have several that you can choose from. 1 to 3 of these sprinkled throughout your event can result in a substantial difference to your bottom line. Next, don't do your live auction and fund a need too late. This is one of the most common mistakes and can be absolutely devastating to your results. The auction and fund a need should begin as soon as guests sit down for dinner after a welcome, why they're here, and a thank you from a board member or staffer. If you have a golf tournament associated with your event, do it on a separate day after the gala portion. It is so difficult to raise money from golfers who have been out in the sun golfing all day. They just simply are too tired to properly focus. Next, have a plated sit-down style dinner versus a buffet. It simply takes too much time to have all of your guests go through a buffet, get food, and then resettle them down for a live auction or a fund a need. Save the BS, and what I mean by that is boring speeches for last. There's nothing more detrimental to fundraising than following several long, boring speeches before you ask for funds. Save the speeches, the awards, the performances, etc., until after the fundraising is completed. I want to clarify that boring speeches are boring for the majority of your guests. Not necessarily the people giving the speech, of course, or somebody receiving an award, but for the majority of your guests, they're going to tune out and it's going to be very hard to refocus them. And lastly, remember to put fundraising first. You're having a fundraising event. It should be focused on fundraising first. You can have fun, you can have a party, but do the fundraising first. Here's a sample gala event timeline. Now, if you hire us as your consultants, we're obviously going to build something that's super customized to your exact needs and your event. And we understand that, but we wanted to kind of give you a general idea of this would maybe be like a Saturday night gala event. Maybe people come formally dressed and whatnot. So let's say it starts at 6 o'clock. People are checking in and they're arriving and going through your check-in process. During this time, from maybe 6 to 7:30, you're going to have your silent auction with cocktails and revenue enhancers. And when I say that means you could be selling raffle tickets or heads or tails necklaces for a heads or tails game that's going to take place later, et cetera, et cetera. At about 7:30, when you close the silent auction, make sure and close it before you move them. Move them into the dinner area if that's separate, or move them to their seats if you're in the same room. Then you're going to want to welcome, an introduction, a thank you, why we're here, and then intro the auctioneer. This is usually done by a board member or a staffer or somebody that really has a passion about the cause, and generally somebody that most people at the event can identify with or who it is. During this, obviously, when people come in, I like to have salads plated and already down so you eliminate that clearing plates noise and all the ruckus that happens from that. Now, moving on to about 7:40 to 7:45 tops, the auctioneer may give opening remarks. I think that's a good thing for auctioneer to kind of identify with the audience. And then do a fundraiser warm-up or a revenue enhancer, or an icebreaker is what we like to call it. This is something that can kind of come right before the live auction that engages all, if not most, of your guests to kind of get them used to the process. At 7:45 to maybe 8:15, that's about a half an hour, the live auction takes place. The entree is actually down. I like doing this during dinner. Like I said in the last slide, make sure and do fundraising first, and we get right into it. You don't want to people don't need 25 minutes to eat and then the program starts. From 8:15 to 8:30, I like to have that first person emotional story from somebody who's really benefited from your cause. This doesn't need to be much more than 60 to 90 seconds. I've seen some really good ones also done up to 3 minutes, but that's about max you want to go. And then immediately following that, you would maybe do a fund-a-need. And if you don't know what a fund-a-need is, we're going to talk about that in future webinars. I put premium dessert auction here. This could be something that could take place where you do a premium dessert auction revenue enhancer after the fund-a-need. You can or can't. I just threw it in there for fun. 8:30 to 8:31, auctioneer is going to give his or her closing remarks. That's when the dessert goes down. You want to save the dessert until the fundraising's done, because dessert has a connotation of we're over, everything's done. So save the dessert until after the auction and fund-a-need are finished. From 8:31 on, you can do your awards, your speeches, entertainment, dancing, whatever you do at your event, or you could simply end the event. It's up to you how you want to structure that. I want to talk a little bit about how to involve guests in your cause, and this is pertaining to specifically at your event. Number one, use table captains. Table captains are great, and I see a lot of people that use them, but a lot of people don't use them. These are people that are designated representatives at each table that can help keep your guests focused on the cause, the live auction, and the fund-a-need, etc. Table captains can help you with noise control during the live auction, which can sometimes get a bit noisy. They can also engage guests in conversation about the reason why they're there. To support your cause, they have a relative that was affected, they're a new guest and they're learning about it. There's a lot of different reasons, and people can go on and talk, and especially at a table of 8 or 10 people, for a long time about the cause, and that's really what you want them to be discussing at the dinner table. Make sure your auctioneer, MC, and speakers, anybody basically getting on the microphone, portray a clear message about your cause. Help them understand what you're all about. This is so important. A simple way to do this really would be to give a list with bullet points to each one of these people, explaining the top aspects of your cause. It is so important that your board members and volunteers mingle with the guests. and engage them in conversation about your cause. Here's a good line that makes approaching guests a lot easier, in my opinion. So picture your volunteer approaching a guest and saying, "Hi, I'm Mike Grigg. I'm a volunteer of ABC Nonprofit tonight. Thank you so much for supporting us this evening. How are you connected with the cause?" Very simple, easy to do. Then simply listen to their response. That's what a lot of people do is they talk too much. They go on and on. Listen to the response, and you'll be amazed at what people say, and it will really be an easy way for your volunteers and board members to engage. I don't want everybody just clustering up and staying with their familiar friends. It's about outreach and fundraising that night. There you have it, the very basics of a fundraising event. Obviously, given the opportunity to work with your organization, we can share with you many more innovative techniques to make your event a real success. Thank you so much for viewing this webinar.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and have found it informative. We invite you to watch the other webinars available here on our website.